This is the first human screwworm case that was confirmed. It's a parasite that eats cattle typically, and people alive. It will literally eat people alive. So the CDC was the first to discover it, but they were silent. And then some vet found out through back channels, and that's how this information, the Maryland State vet was the one that they said the CSC knew for a while, but it evidently came from Guatemala through probably the cattle exports from Central America. We get a lot of our beef and our cattle from down there. And so this basically is a parasite that will eat humans alive.
Well, that's the worst kind, I think, of parasite.
Yeah,
it's interesting. I obviously my problem solver brain is just like, how do we avoid things like this happening? And maybe it's a little bit defeatist, but sometimes I feel like these things are going to happen from time to time, just with the way that factory farming and how little the health of the animals and ultimately the health of the consumer is thought about when these farms are set up and how they're run.
Yeah, but it's not from America.
No, but
it's from Central America, and you're talking about the jungle of South America where there's tons of animals and things like in the rainforest that like shouldn't be up in America, but we're bringing these cattle up.
Well, I think
here.
the reason they're up here is because it's less expensive to grow these animals in places where the health regulations and animal regulations are even less strict than they are here. So there's got to be a financial incentive for these companies to outsource the beef, and then that's pumping money into an industry that is a petri dish for crazy parasites. And then where this is the downside of deregulating factory farming, I feel, is this is going to happen from time to time.
If they kept factory farms alive in America, it would be a way healthier, process than the factory farms that are in third world countries. So I think majorly it's about keeping American beef and American cattle like as pristine as possible and not allowing for outside sources of cattle to come into this country. Because those places where the cattle are coming from aren't actually regulated like an American factory farm is regulated.
Yeah, and I think the scary part is that it is capable of happening here, and it's capable of happening even worse in a way because of the amount of antibiotics that we give to the animals in American factory farming. We have the risk of producing a greater risk of producing, medicine resistant strains of bacteria and parasites and viruses that find a way through. They're trying to survive just like every other living organism. So when we provide them with sort of the map to beat us by giving them all this medication, the ones that do survive and the ones that do proliferate are going to be even harder to control and possibly even more dangerous. Now it's going to happen less often, but really what needs to happen is kind of a switch to just a more sustainable, cleaner way of creating this beef. And also it's going to have to come along with a reduction in consumption, because the only way we keep our consumption at the level that it is right now is factory farming. So it's really up to the people to reduce their consumption. That's the only way that it's not going to be viable anymore to factory farm.
Honestly, these are, in my opinion, it's more so about imports than it is about American products. And for so long, the American cattle farmer has been put down, and the regulations have been harder and harder on the American made beef. And so these cattle farmers in America have had the regulations come down on them. So in order for the like big business beef is basically sideswiping around or like going around the American cattle farmer and getting the cheaper product. And what's happening is that because the American beef is more expensive because it's grown here in America, it's like American made products. American made products are going to be more expensive than the products coming from Guatemala.
Oh, yeah.
But you're gonna get cheaper products coming in as an import, and these big businesses like are taking that exported or imported product because it's cheaper and then upselling it here with a bigger profit. So it's all about profit incentives that are literally destroying our local cattle farmers. And you can think of it more on the side of that than say factory farming, because not every cattle farm is a factory farm.
Oh, absolutely. No, I think that, yeah, you're right that it's harder and harder to be a small business, especially in a commodities market. You're always they're going to try and out-regulate you by forcing more and more expensive solutions to problems that shouldn't exist in the first place. If you're allowing your cows to go and eat grass in a pasture, the chances of them getting sick because they're not just standing in each other's poop 24 hours a day it's a problem that should be able to solve itself. Applying regulations to a cattle rancher that's been doing it for 10 generations, or however long generations is a weird measurement of time, but
60 generations.
It's not fair. They're definitely trying to push them out, and it might be so. Where I live, there's a giant manufacturer of pharmaceutical drugs for livestock. It's one of the bigger industries here.
Shout out. Sponsor us.
Yeah, Zoetis. Yeah, sponsor us. What they're probably doing is lobbying for these regulations that allow them to sell more of their pharmaceuticals, right? I mean, that's their game, is they're trying to move as much of their antibiotic products for chickens and cows and sheep, and maybe not the sheep, probably the sheep too, everything, and the pigs.
I mean, obviously these. Sorry, go ahead.
That was my point. Is just the money of these regulations is probably in the pharmaceutical industry for livestock.
Yeah, and the pharmaceutical industry for livestock really is what you're talking about, where it's the reason why they're needing to pump them full of antibiotics and are because the fact that they're in bad conditions and not in a field somewhere, not standing. So the animals that are, so they probably are pushing for more farmers to have animals standing in their own shit than they are legislating for farmers to have their animals free roaming and grazing. So they're actually incentivizing factory farms here in order to sell the pharmaceuticals, because they don't sell pharmaceuticals to the cattle farmer who's like having fresh beef grown on cattle grown on the prairie.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the amount of disease must be lower, and then also just the quantity of cows, the heads of cattle is much lower. So who are you going to target? Are you going to target, are you going to mold your business model around ranchers or around giant factory farmers? The scalability is so much greater if you model it towards promoting these giant, disgusting places that are eventually going to cause us to have lower testosterone levels and thyroid problems, because we're getting the antibiotics in our food and all of these antiviral medications and just crazy stuff. We're eating it on a daily basis. And then that leads into the human pharmaceutical lobby. Like, why wouldn't they promote factory farming if it keeps us sick, which is,
You are what you eat.
yeah. So if you're a bunch of poison, you're going to be a
You're
toxic
sick too.
individual.
I think this story also comes up in light of this story is you can go down the path of also thinking about the types of invasive species that arrive on our borders from other countries. And so this parasite I would consider an invasive species of animal. And the only way that it arrives is through human intervention in this system.